Welcome to Your Ink Story, a podcast exploring what humans have in common through the stories behind the body art folks wear. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, and I hope these INKspirational short stories, sharing the heart behind tattoos, fascinate you and leave you feeling more meaningfully connected to humanity. This is Season 1, Episode 14, and our guest, Stephen Vellecca, takes us on a profound journey of self-expression, acceptance, and empathy, all while sharing the inspirational stories behind many of his 20 tattoos. Throughout our conversation, Stephen challenges societal judgments on tattoos, reminding us that it's the personal meaning behind the ink that truly matters. Welcome to Your Ink Story, Stephen. I'm so delighted you're here to share your ink story. Where on this beautiful planet do you live?
I'm currently residing in the Poconos of Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful part of the world. Well, I'm so grateful you're here to share your ink stories with us, the listeners. We can't wait to hear all the details. Let's begin with your tattoo origin story. What originally inspired you to put a tattoo on your body and wear body art?
First, thank you for having me. Your podcasts have been just so touching, hearing everyone's stories. So I kind of had a false start, to be honest with you, with my first tattoo. So the essence of why I got the tattoo remains with the rest of my story. So I kind of did a reboot. But my first tattoo was actually on my back. I was 22 years old. It was my first trip with friends, and we went to Puerto Rico and stayed up all night dancing and having fun, and ended up on the beach watching the sunset. So the sun was on one side, the moon was on another, and it just inspired me to get my first tattoo. But it was the 90s, and the 90s was marked very much by a lot of celestial crystal design. So I had it on my back. It was a moon and a sun, but it was very dated because it was orange and red. And so I had loved it for a while, but I never thought of getting more. But then later on in life, I started to really embrace a creative side of me that I always knew I had, but was too scared to bring out.
Really? What were you doing where you weren't tapped into your creativity?
Well, so how I was raised, very conservative. It was, you go to school, you get a job, you buy a home, that's success.
There you go. That's the
So
memo.
that's the memo. And I would say, let's just say the creative side of me, the artistic side of me, was never really encouraged to blossom. And I was always too afraid to probably
Yeah.
pursue the arts.
You wanted to succeed via the blueprint you had been shown so that the people around you would continue to love you for you being success in their eyes. And so what shifted? What happened that you said, okay, I need to be fully expressed?
I think it was finally living in Manhattan, being exposed to all the people I wish I would have been exposed to. It was finally being comfortable with who I was and being safe to come out and have a real chosen family of friends and who I could be myself with, and starting to be exposed to more people that were artistic and expressive. So one of my best friends who I met in like 1992, his name is Keith, I always envied because he just seemed to march to his own drum, didn't care about what people thought of him. He marched to his own beat. We're still the closest of friends today. And he started getting all of these tats, but they were sort of that sailor pop culture type vintage tats. And as I was fascinated by it, but I was like, well, that's not me. So I just didn't know how to start the journey. And then one day I was walking down the street and I was pursuing photography. And I snapped a photo of a rose and it came out really pretty. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this one on my back done because at this point it just looks so dated. So I had this one, I had it tattooed over. And then my real first journey started with the one up here. And it's so faded. I have to get it redone. But I was like, if I'm going to do my first tattoo, it's got to be something so close to my heart. And it's the symbol of Wonder Woman.
Oh my gosh. I find that fascinating, Stephen. And listeners, you have to know, of course, I get the photos ahead of time and with a little bit of a background. And my head just was like, what? Wonder Woman?
Yeah.
I need to know more about that. Share.
So this one was really what started the journey of that. I was only going to get tattoos that truly meant something to my heart or commemorated my life, and they would only be on my arms because I wanted to create this storyboard. So the Wonder Woman tattoo was just a symbol of everything that I believed in life, and she was the superhero that exemplified it, which is truth and vulnerability and not violence. Like, if you know the story of Wonder Woman, she only used her strength when she had to.
Right.
And most of her strength was either deflecting the bullets or using her lasso for truth. Right. And that was really how she was like a crime fighter in so many ways. And it's just how I believe life should be. Less violence, more truth, and more vulnerability in people.
And folks, the tattoo is not Wonder Woman herself.
No.
It's her symbol. It's the W's, right?
It's the W's, right? And the funniest thing is at the gym and everything, these straight guys come up to me, he's like, is that WWF wrestling or is that Van Halen? And I'm like, it's Wonder Woman. And then they would just cock their heads and look at me, and somebody would be like, oh, that's brave, or that's cool. And so that started the real journey of my tattoos on my arms. And
right. And listeners, when you hop on over to Instagram, as I know you will see the reel that I created for Steven's tattoos, and you can see how he's got both arms and he's got a lot going on, and they're really, really amazing. So what was it like finding that first studio? That because now you're not on the beach in Puerto Rico getting the buzz, right? You're putting some thought into that, and you're going, okay, I need to go someplace. I'm in Manhattan, really kind of a vortex of amazing tattoo artists. How did you figure that out?
So that is the really interesting part, I think, of my story, because the Wonder Woman was a one-off. The one on my back, a friend, I knew it had to be crafted very well to cover up something. So my friend who had all the tattoos recommended them. But what was missing in the experience was an intimacy. And then I took a break from getting them because I felt like, well, that was kind of a transaction. And for me, anyone touching my body, I want to connect with. So whether it's a hair cutter, or I've had the same dentist since in 1998. Like, there's an intimacy there because I feel like they become part of your life and part of your experiences. So I was able to meet this tattoo artist. I think it was via Instagram. His name was Rick Shank. He did tattoos out of Brooklyn. And he was instrumental in my journey. And he did about 5 or 6 or 7 pieces on my arms where I started to really now follow my journey of that each tattoo was going to be something to commemorate or something that I never wanted to forget in life. Oh my God. And he was fantastic. And we just clicked and we vibed and we would argue because he was always, I want to do something bigger on you, not these small little things of Jesus. And I was like, I know you're not doing a massive sleeve. They're all, you know. So he was great.
That's important, Steve Ed. And listeners, think about this too, because it's easy to get into the tat chair and let the artist take over. And you've got to be really clear about your conviction of what you want your art to look, or you may come out of there going, well, yeah, it's great, but it really wasn't what I wanted. So be strong, listeners.
Yeah. So he was wonderful. And I would show him something or a drawing that, and I'm a terrible drawer, but I would give him an inspiration or find a piece of art somewhere, and then he would really create it for me. But then he moved to Hawaii.
Well, for crying out loud, that's a good 10-hour flight.
And my tattoo journey came to an abrupt end. I was like stockpiling ideas as different momentous occasions happened in my life. So there was probably a long break of 6 years or so. I had moved to Miami. I came back to New York. And then I bought this little house in the Poconos. And I was like, I need to resume this journey. I have 5 or 6 or 7 tattoos like I know I want to get. And I started to research, and someone referred this little place in Milford called Forsaken Ink. And I went in and I met a tattoo artist named Jeff, and we just hit it off. He's my tattoo artist today. I pray he never moves. He's done about 10 of them.
Okay, so what's Jeff's name and what's his studio?
Jeff Schick of Forsaken Ink.
I just think it's so great to be able to honor the tattoo artists and where they work out of and do a shout out for them.
I refer him to anyone that's interested, especially if you're looking for your first tattoo, because not only do I find him so patient and just interested in the story. The whole shop's vibe, I just love going there. So I get a couple each spring before the summer happens, and I have to make another appointment because I have another idea that I want to get. So that's kind of been the journey. It's important for me to connect with the artist and have them show an interest in the why I'm doing it, because they're so meaningful to me.
That is so beautiful. How many tattoos do you have today?
20 plus the one on my back, so, and counting.
Excellent.
Some are decent size, but most of them are just small little mementos. So I try to find real estate that I still have on my arms because I don't want to go off.
And you have words. So I'm looking at resilienza.
Yeah. So my Italian heritage is important to me. And the two values that I try to live my life by are integrity and resilience. Yeah. And I think I've proven to be resilient in my life, but I didn't want them in English because I wanted them to pique either curiosity or not just be easily recognized. So I had them done in Italian.
And then you have the quote, poets, priests of nothing, legends. What's that about?
So in addition to Wonder Woman, my other icon in life, someone who has gotten me through music, has probably saved me in my life in some bad moments. And music specifically is Stevie Nicks. So I can listen to Stevie Nicks like when I'm in one of my bad zones or growing up. Like Stevie Nicks' lyrics have always touched me. So I have two tattoos devoted to Stevie Nicks. One is a white-winged dove, which is up here. Again, kind of tied to Wonder Woman, peace, freedom, kind of symbolic. But then the lyric, it's a beautiful song. It's called "Has Anybody Ever Written Anything for You?" And she wrote this song about a friend of hers who lost their daughter in an accident. And when she sings it live, it will bring me to tears. I can get emotional now thinking about the lyrics. But when she tells the story live on stage, and what this lyric is about, Stevie she's never settled down, never had kids, and I'm single. I've had some great relationships, some challenging relationships. So I feel like sort of a kindred spirit of like, how did it not work out for us to find that partner forever? But when she says in the stage show, when they ask me about the men in my life, and they do ask me about the men in my life, I say they were poets. They were priests of nothing, yet they were legends. And that's kind of how I describe the people that have come and gone in my life as well. So I put that on my arm.
That is so powerful.
And that's the thing. Yeah. And, for music, for someone who was such a trailblazer and is still going today, but she never changed who she was. And I think that's part of, as I grow, I try to always still be who I am from the core of being a decent human being and trying to lead with empathy and understanding. And part of what I think is missing in this world is for people I can never say I get what you're going through, but what I can say is, but I want to understand what you're going through. And that's so missing in this country.
It absolutely is. And Brene Brown described it really well, which is sympathy versus empathy. Sympathy is, can I get you a sandwich? Whereas empathy is, I don't know the dark place you're in right now, but I've been in dark places, so I can hold your hand in and honor the dark place that you're in right now.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. Listeners, do you have a musician, songwriter, or a band that just lights your heart on fire? I think you remember episode, I believe it was 3, the artist who created our beautiful artwork here for your ink story. David Bowie was very instrumental to her. She has a beautiful tat.
I listened to that. And, and it's funny, I listened to that podcast and the way she described that she didn't want to do like the lightning bolt, like she did something that was very meaningful like that. And I think that's what evokes conversation. So when the Priest of Nothing lyric, it's underneath my arm, so it's not as visible as my other tattoos. But when people do show an interest, I think that's the emotional connection. Because some people will walk by and be like, hey, cool tattoo, whatever. But some people actually will stop and say, tell me about that. And when you get to share that connection, and that's to me the beauty of it. And I don't know, I think when I started this journey, going back to what I originally said about not necessarily being encouraged to explore my creative side or being afraid to explore my creative side, it wasn't like a, I don't know, shock value thing, but it was a way for me to express something that maybe people didn't think I would have ever done.
Exactly. And the beauty of this podcast, Stephen, is the permission that's being given to more people to say, wow, that tattoo, would you be willing to tell me that story
Yeah.
behind that? And then
Yeah.
boom, you've ignited a conversation that goes beyond the surface. And it's so important. A lot of people have said to me, Stephen, that they wanted to ask somebody, but they were shy. They didn't feel like they had permission. So we're giving y'all permission.
Yeah.
And the person with the body art will then say, yes, you have permission, or no, I'm not willing. But this is a great conversation started.
It's such a great story. And you know, pre-COVID, there was a different work culture. If you weren't in a creative world like a stylist or a bartender or other less corporate job, you could show your tattoos. In the company I worked for, it was frowned upon. So I used to keep my sleeves down, and our associates in our stores were no tattoos visible. And shift to cultural wars and social unrest and everything we went through, all of a sudden this expression of be your authentic self came to the workforce. And I just found it really interesting that we've made progress, but why? Did we have to now make it sort of a green light to be your authentic self? If you have tattoos, you can show them. Why was it so frowned upon in the corporate world? It didn't change my work performance.
The stigma. There was a
It was-
stigma around tattoos because it meant you were a sketchy military person or you were a sketchy gang member. All of these connotations were associated with tattoos that are absolutely wrong. And the numbers are out there. It's 30 to 40% of millennials have tattoos. So all of a sudden, it is in the workforce. People are coming out. And you're right. I think it's this whole stepping into and also fighting for others, whether it's the drag queens, our LGBTQ community,
right.
our Black Americans, and standing up and helping amplify their voices have given, I believe, more permission to get out there. Listeners, do you have a tattoo that you, before COVID, as Stephen said, kept covering it up in the workplace, but now you're like, hey, short sleeves, this is it. This is me. This is how I am. Let us know. And you know, on episode 6, we talked to Dr. J, who is a professor at Emerson College, right? He loves to show up to class the first day. Instead of in his usual suit, which is what he prefers to wear, he shows up in a short sleeve and shorts and lets everybody see his entire leg sleeves, arm sleeves, throat tattoo. I mean, he's got it all.
Yeah, that was another great podcast. So I joke around like with my nieces and nephew about it because I think that's also some of the permission in a way where people like, I want to get one, I just don't know what to get. And so I always encourage people, I'm like, just look inside to what means something to you that you want to remember or share the story of. So one of my most meaningful ones, I didn't want it to be obvious, so I did an inverted 3, and it's in a mid-century font, and that was a testament to my nieces and nephew. I wanted something that symbolized them, and when people look at it, they don't know what it is. So I get the craziest things. They're like, "Is that a bat? Is that an esophagus?" And people's like, someone's like, "Is that a butt?" And I'm like, "No."
Is that a W? Is that something hanging down? I mean, I could see how you could get. Listeners, hop on over to Instagram and see Stephen's tats. Oh my gosh.
So I also love the comical exchange sometimes when people just look at my tattoos and they're like, what is that? What do you see?
Oh, that is so funny. But is it that because you have 3 nieces and nephew or
yeah. So my brother has triplets and they were like miracle kids. And I just wanted something. I think I got it probably when they're 22, 23 years old now, but I got it when they were probably preteen because I just wanted something because it means so much to me. So I was like, what could I do? And I didn't want to do 3 stick figures. And I love mid-century typeface. And I thought, I'll just put a number 3 on my body. Why not?
You did it Stephen's way.
I did it, yeah. So So I think each tattoo has a little bit of some creativity to it that they're not obvious what they
And
mean. That's the other.
it looks like you have a Sailor Jerry tab. It looks like it might be Coast Guard. What is
That's the anchor.
the anchor?
Yeah, so the anchor, and oh gosh, you're gonna think I'm nuts. So I have an anchor, and underneath it, it says the SS Rhiannon. So 5 years ago, on a whim, I bought this old boat to put on a lake out here for things for my friends and my family to go on. And I've never had a boat in my life, and it was just like literally like a 25-year-old boat. And I named her the Rhiannon because another lyric from a Stevie Nicks song, Rhiannon takes to the sky like a bird in flight, and who will be her lover? So I guess some of my tattoos, where's my lover, or who will be my lover? So that's that tattoo. It's a homage to being able to buy a boat and provide these experiences for friends that have been incredible.
Listen, folks, as you age, it's wonderful to be able to go down your body and go, oh, yeah, that was meaningful, and tap into that meaningful moment. And that's the beauty of taking this landscape of your body and putting these important milestones, moments, triumphs, tributes, losses, whatever the meaning is, on your body like this. It's so, so important. As I look at some of the other, you've got a horse running in the wind.
I do.
Galloping.
He's a Mustang because I've always loved old vintage American muscle cars, and I've had 4 Mustangs. I currently have an old Mustang convertible, and I was like, I'm going to put a Mustang on my body. So it's simple, but it is just symbolic of who I am. And sometimes a car can be really materialistic or superficial. I had an accident with my old Mustang, and they told me I was going to have to total it. And I almost cried because I was so attached to her. Not for any other reason. It's just, I don't know what it was. Like, how do you get attached to a piece of metal?
Oh, it's part of that being fully expressed.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's the 356 Porsche 1956.
Wow.
I have a whole Pinterest board
Do you really?
to those. Yeah.
So I was able to find a very similar, I mean, she's almost identical, and I bought her off her Carvana, sight unseen. They delivered her, and she lives on. So I did commemorate the horse.
I love that. And is that the Om symbol I'm seeing?
Yeah. So this is really interesting. So yoga and meditation is part of my mental health. I'm a mental health advocate, and I've had my ups and downs with medication, with my depression. And then I finally wanted to live my life pharmaceutical free. And it's not a judgment about pharmaceuticals because they've saved my life.
Yeah.
I wanted to explore root cause of, can I live my life without medication and navigate it myself? So meditation and yoga and breathing has become such a part of my mental health. So this is a Gaiety Sanskrit about strength and harmony. Again, kind of ties back to Wonder Woman, Stevie Nicks, like all these things about peace and harmony. So I did the Om symbol with this Sanskrit that goes around it. But true story that literally just happened last Saturday. I went to go see my mom has advanced Alzheimer's, so she has some AIDS. And I went to visit her on Saturday, and there was this new person there, first day there. And it turns out she's from India, Hindu, and she saw my arm and she started chanting it.
Oh my gosh.
The connection that I left with that, and I have a bunch of notes of things that she wanted me to look up and to research from her religion and from the Indian culture. She actually gave me 2 more tattoo ideas that I'm not quite sure about. But what an amazing moment for that. She literally could read the Sanskrit and do the chant.
That is so cool. And that, again, connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And she encouraged me as she got to know me a little bit, and the challenges with my mom and her Alzheimer's. And she suggested I do this chant every morning as part of my meditation. But what a moment, right? Like, what a sheer coincidence.
Double chef's kiss, too, for just the meaningfulness behind it. Yeah. And then you have New York City and the date.
This is my most recent one. It says New York City. It's a mid-century design with the Empire State Building, and it says 1992.
Why?
So I moved into Manhattan in 92, and that's where life really began. And I've left or I've tried to leave New York 2 other times. I moved to Miami, came running back during COVID, moved out to my country house out of necessity, went back. And then this year, end of May, I just had to come to this realization that I can't afford both places anymore. I have to make this decision. So I chose to live out of my country house. And the challenge is I love it out here, but as a single gay man living in the Poconos, all my friends are couples. And so it's not exactly a dating pool. So I'm going to leave all my friends that I see all that. So I had to take the emotion out of it. Right. And so you're doing this because you have to, because of the mistakes you made in your life. It is time to pay the piper in a sense, like no more denial.
Yeah, I wouldn't go down the guilt stuff. I would put it as more proactive, but more important is how you want your life to be. And so you're doing the right things. It's so important because you do have the second half of your life. And how do I want that to look and feel? And trust that you will find the relationships that you need where you are. And how long does it take you to get to downtown Manhattan from where you are?
It's like 2 hours. And thank you. I appreciate that. I do. This is mental health. This is what I do. I wrestle with myself and I put the negative thoughts, but then I push back to say, we did this for a reason. We're planning our future. So the tattoo was my way of saying, okay, third time you're trying to leave New York, you're going to take the emotion out of it and you're going to look at this responsibly. And Jeff did this tattoo on me right at the beginning of the summer. That was the last one I got.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that story too, for our dreams to come true, to have the life that we want. Sometimes we have to make some tough decisions and you never know how that might work out, but I applaud you.
Thank you
for taking care of you and your financial condition that way. So yay. And you have a seahorse?
I have a seahorse up on my bicep also. Mm-hmm. This symbolizes, I grew up on Long Island and my escape was Jones Beach. And Jones Beach was designed by Robert Moses and all very sort of Art Deco style design. And seahorses played a tremendous role in his architecture. So these were all over Jones Beach, but I did it again in a little bit of a inverted way. So the seahorse is my skin, but then the block around it is colored. So I wanted to symbolize that the beach was my escape from things that were going on in my life. And I used to just go down there for hours at a time by myself and write. And that, again, that creative side that wasn't nurtured. So I decided to get the seahorse. But then when I started researching seahorses, how strong they are, and that the male seahorse is the one that reproduces. And in Chinese philosophy, the seahorse is known for carrying the souls of soldiers who die at sea and carrying their souls onto the final resting place. So these little creatures are so strong and so resilient. And that's what I found so connective to me. In addition to the memory of escaping to Jones Beach, it's this little seahorse is so powerful and so emotionally connected to souls that I put him there.
I love that. I know you're going to inspire someone to get a seahorse just by letting everybody know, because I'm sure listeners, did you know that about seahorses? I did not. So that's beautiful. And there's one more tattoo I'm just curious about because it's very feathery. It's on your right. Looks like your right lower arm. Yeah, that one. What is that? Yeah.
Okay. So it has 2 dots and that. Yeah. So another great conversation because it does look like a wing or a bird.
Yeah.
So this commemorated my love and my 2-year stint living in Miami. So photography, like I said, has been a passion of mine. And I took a photograph of a mid-century hotel that the windows were portholes and had a palm frond that just happened to be blowing. So I took the photograph of it and I gave it to Jeff and he created a tattoo out of it. So this is my way of symbolizing the Miami chapter of my life.
You have so many beautiful touchstones on your body to remind you of the extraordinary life you have lived, your courage, your resilience, your strength, and your curiosity. It is so wonderful. And you've mentioned your creativity several times throughout our conversation, but I haven't asked yet, and I'm sure listeners are curious as well. How does creativity show up for you? Some people are artists, some people are actors, some people are writers. How does creativity show up for you?
On the professional side, it shows up by me questioning everything we do and trying to put a new spin. I'm a learning and development director, so I teach and I train for a living, leadership skills. So the creative side there is to me to try to find ways, new ways of unlocking someone's potential they didn't think they had. So I tried to bring creativity into work in a non-creative world. My personal life, it's through music and it's through photography, it's through my tattoos, it's through conversation. I've learned how to landscape, so I spend a tremendous amount of time with my hands in nature trying to create this home of all native species to Pennsylvania. So my creativity is in the garden. I do a lot of work now in my community since I'm out here full time, whether it's through the historical society we have out here or through our community management. And so I try to just bring ideas that we actually, before this podcast, I was with them saying, you know, one of our opportunities out here is recognizing the change of demographics, that many of us urban professionals that may not have kids, that work from home full time, are now living here. But we don't have a space for us to go outside of our house, to bring our laptop, to grab a cup of coffee. And we're missing the boat there. And I guess that's how my creativity is tapped, by always just trying to identify opportunities to bring change or bring understanding or bring inclusivity to people.
Yeah.
I'm on these committees and someone will say to me, well, it won't be 5 minutes before Steven says something about DEI. And, you know, I say, well, because,
Hooray.
right. And that's why I respond. It's like, because you're in a group of people that's never been marginalized or not finding your rights disappearing. So it is important for those of us that may feel like we're not being heard. So I guess my creativity comes in a lot of different avenues at this point.
I think it's tremendous. I love that. And thank you for being a DEI advocate, accomplice, ally. We have to have that conversation all the time, everywhere. And
Yeah.
I really believe that's why you are where you are, because that's where you can make the greatest difference and impact with your creativity, with your voice, with who you be. So bravo for that. One final question before we wrap up, because we're seeing a shift. If folks, if you hop on to TikTok or Instagram and follow some of these amazing tattoo artists, you know that we're seeing it as the art form it has become. So I'm curious, Stephen, what would you like to see change about the perception of tattoos?
Well, I think we're moving in the right direction with, as that example about the authentic self. So I think corporation, if you're choosing a career that's in a more conservative zone, I think that world is changing. I think whether it's tattoos or anything, it's, to me, why are we judging anything? You know, if I want to put a tattoo across my forehead or whatever, as long as it's not evoking violence or prejudice towards another group of people, I want us as a society to stop assuming and stop leading with negative intent. If we all lead with good intent and we look to understand a story behind someone's motivation for getting a tattoo and the journey of what it means to that person personally, then we're moving in the right direction. But I think you could take tattoos out of that and you could put anything, right? Any subject matter into that. So I want tattoos to just be appreciated for the incredible artists that make tattoos. So for me, it's more about the profession of and the respect. Like, to me, a tattoo artist is such a phenomenal person and such a phenomenal responsibility, that they are artists in themselves, but they're being asked to put something on your body that's permanent. And I think we celebrate cosmetic surgeons more than we celebrate tattoo artists. And I want to see them really receive the appreciation and the recognition for their mastery.
Bravo. 100% on that. Exactly. Listeners, be sure to hop on Instagram to see Stephen's wonderful tattoos and follow, if you're not following already, the other tattoo artists you'll see that I'm following. We're over on TikTok. I'm the handle is at Your Ink Story on TikTok and at Tell Me Your Ink Story on Instagram, because there are phenomenal reels going on with these tattoo artists talking about their work and how they do it. And it really is remarkable. And we want to celebrate them for their artistry and their willingness to put an image that you've chosen on your body. I mean, the courage it takes and the intimacy that's involved, as Stephen talked about earlier, is extraordinary and rarely celebrated. So let's do more of that. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful ink stories with us. I'm so grateful for your inspirational insights about the art of tattoos and the heart and meaning behind your amazing tattoos. You've helped us connect more deeply with each other throughout this conversation.
I appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity. It was an honor.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Ink Story. Please rate and review this podcast wherever you are tuning in. And if this episode inspired you, please share it so we can all feel more connected through our common humanity and lived experiences. If you or someone you know would like to share a meaningful ink story on the podcast, please send me an email, Ande@yourinkstory.com, along with a brief description. Feel free to share your thoughts about this episode via a voicemail message by visiting yourinkstory.com. And when you get to the website, just tap the podcast mic icon located in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and leave your message. Until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Cheers.